The regular meeting of the Southern Shores Town Council for February the 3rd, 2015 is now in session. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Council, I need a motion to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion's made and carried. At this time, I'd welcome public comment. Thank you, Brian. Tommy Carroll. Good evening.
Good evening, Council, Mayor, Mr. Rasco, Sheila. Just something short tonight. Over the last couple of weeks, I've run into people, and I think there's a misconception here about, I represent TAPS, as you know, the Alliance to Preserve Southern Shores. And there are web pages out there, the Fairway Drive Facebook page, I said website, but Facebook page, and the Save Southern Shores. And I wanted to make the distinction, to draw the distinction between TAPS and those Facebook pages. I'm personally not on Facebook. I know my business is on Facebook, but I have nothing to, I can't log on to Facebook. There have been attempts on those Facebook pages at humor. Some find them funny, some find them don't. Some of the information's factual, some of it could be hurtful, some of it's not factual. And I just wanted to make sure, and I think the council is aware, and I wanted to make sure the audience is aware, and the TV audience, if you will, is aware that the TAPS, the people on Facebook seem to be angry. They're angry. I understand they're angry. We understand they're angry. I'm angry about some of the things that have been done in the past. But we have, Tom, I know Jody's been at some meetings. You folks have been open. You've had an open door. Peter's had an open door, and we appreciate that. And what TAPS brings to you is every attempt to bring information that is factual. Factual. There's a lot of smart people working on it, people that are taking their times away from their families, away from their regular jobs. So when TAPS brings something to this council, we believe in it, and we believe it's factual. It's not meant to deceive. It's not meant to hurt. We don't have to agree, but at least we want to present our side, what we think we'd like to see in the town, what we feel the majority wants to see in the town. That doesn't mean if we don't agree, and if I see you in the grocery store, I have to run away and not say hello. We don't have to agree, but I wanted to make sure that people understand. I'm not faulting the folks from the Facebook pages. That's their gig. That's their, no problem. But facts, and since, over the last couple of months, you folks have certainly opened your doors. Peter's opened your doors. Everybody's opened their doors and listened to us. We want that relationship to continue. And as in any, I have to call it a negotiation that's going on, and my time is up.
Your time is up.
That it needs to be a win-win, and that's what we're after. And I just wanted to make that point, and as we move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
At this time, I close the public comment period.
Tom? Okay, we have one come in late.
She
here.
came in late. Ann came in late.
I'm sorry, Ann. I know, I'm, no problem.
Calm down. Just let her talk.
I'm sorry. We made a decision. Well, do what you will, but I made a decision that she's not here on time to speak, and I'm not going to make an exception. I make an exception for her, it's everybody else too. Thank you. Council, I need your approval, I need a motion to approve the consent agenda,
So moved.
tab 1.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Staff reports. Finance Officer Bonnie?
That's not the order. Tom, that's not the order of the agenda, is it?
Yes,
Yeah.
consent agenda?
Oh, okay.
Staff report.
I'm
Staff
sorry.
report. No problem,
I was thinking we were going to discuss the other.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Before you, I have the second quarter of the current fiscal year, October through December 2014. And as you will see here on the chart before you, I will explain a little bit of that in detail, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. As far as the revenues go, you can see that there's been a slight decrease. Again, this time of year, it's still a little bit of timing issues on when we get things, but most of this is due to, as expected, our shared revenues, which are the occupancy, sales tax, and land transfer are down, and that's due to us keeping our tax rate at revenue neutral this past year, and some other municipalities raised theirs, so that means that we get less. Under other revenues, they're significantly less. The second half of the Powell bill money was distributed actually 1 week later than last year, which meant that that fell in January and not December, and you're talking about to the tune of $60,000. So that's where most of that is, and the good news that I do have is that the building permits have increased over last fiscal year. This quarter, they increased by about 15,000. So any questions about the revenues? Okay. On expenditures, I'll go through the different departments and kind of tell what the differences are there. We'll start with the administration department. Most of that is due to a number of things. We had merit increases the prior year, which were given to employees, and then a COLA that was given in July. Also associated with salary increases are increases in benefits. So that's some of the increase there. Under contracted services, current employee was paid through a temp agency until she was hired full-time upon another employee's retirement. So that contracted service is increased over the fiscal year prior. Under employee recognition, as you recall, we had 2 of our long-term employees that retired this last quarter. So we did something for them that we had not had to do the prior year. In the police department, most of that is due, if you recall, you approved a budget amendment to pay for the police vehicles that we had on lease purchase, that we paid those off in full. So the payment in full on the police vehicles, this was for 2 vehicles in this current fiscal year and 4 vehicles from the prior fiscal years. And also the police separation as recommended by the auditor, as you will recall, we did a budget amendment this year to put the additional money in the pension trust fund as outlined in the special separation pay study that's performed each year. Sanitation, the decrease in this department is from the savings on the chipping contract. We went out for bid and the contract cost went down about $20,000, so that's what the savings is mainly from in that department. Streets, canals, and bridges, I think that everyone knows that this is for the payment in full on the canal. The Public Works, the increase in that was due to a new tractor and a truck that were purchased this year. Although there has been a significant amount of work done to the town building, such as the new deck and the fastening along with the bulkheading over at the police department, and also the new chairs and tables for the police training room, and also the work here on the Diaz at the pit center along with the new lighting. So we had a significant increase in that this year. And the final department, code enforcement, is the bike and ped plan. We finished up the plan this fiscal year, and last fiscal year we had not started it. By this time, we didn't start it until the following February, so therefore it shows that we spent more money this year as we did to this time last year. Any questions?
Any questions, council?
No?
Thank you,
you.
Bonnie.
All right.
Our town planner, Mr. Wes Haskett.
Thank you and good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I have a brief report for you tonight for the month of January. There were 3 zoning permits issued, 17 building permits issued, and that consisted of 1 new single-family dwelling, 1 remodel and repair, 1 remodel and addition, 1 addition, 3 remodels, 3 accessory structures, and 7 others, which consists of bulkhead, mechanical, electrical, or plumbing. There are currently 15 single-family dwellings under construction in town, and the total amount of fees collected in January was $5,935.79. And as a side note, today, I don't know if you all did ride up NC-12, but the AT&T tower at the Triangle Park has been put in place. Any questions?
Thank you. Appreciate it, Wes.
Thank you.
Chief Cole.
Good evening. Police report for January of 2015. We had a total of 1,065 calls for service. If that's any indication of how the year's going to go, that's an increase of 238 over last year. Some of those are attributed to some extra business checks and some of the residence checks. But as you can see on the breakdown of calls for service, 212 of those were business checks, another 166 were residence checks. We had 9 mutual aid requests from other surrounding police agencies, 41 direct traffic, 23 suspicious condition calls. We responded to 17 different alarms, residential. Officers conducted 70 traffic stops, and we had 296 extra patrols. We actually had 14 incidents, which are crimes. You can see their breakdown on the right to that. We made 3 criminal arrests. Officers, out of that 70 traffic stops, they handed out 28 written citations and another 28 warning citations. And we had 4 ordinance violations and 3 motor vehicle accidents for the month of January. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Yes, Chief, is there any progress to report on the mailbox breaking and entering that we had in the past?
What I can tell you is we wrapped up our investigation. We spent 2 days with federal investigators through the Postal Service, and now we just wait for the federal government. So it's in their hands right now.
Okay. Would you keep us informed?
I will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Chief Limbacher, Southern Shores Volunteer Fire Department.
Good evening, members of council, mayor. For the month of January, the fire department ran a total of 36 calls, and it breaks down pretty simply as we had 1 chimney fire, 1 outside fire, 25 EMS assists, 1 hazardous condition, 1 natural gas leak, 1 combustible or other spill, 1 vehicle accident with general cleanup, 4 public service, which amount to smoke alarms, things like that, and one smoke scare or odor of smoke. That's it for the month of January. Anybody have any questions?
That was natural gas? Piped gas?
Yeah.
Okay, was it
It was,
residential?
it was called in to me on my cell phone by a neighboring police chief. Had some family at the church and said they smelled natural gas, but when we went over there, we couldn't locate it. So a lot of times they'll smell that in the corner of the baseball field at Vents there, but the wind was running the other way, so we never did detect anything.
Were the 36 calls more or less than last month? When the police chief said
I'm
they saw
actually,
it?
it's funny you ask that, because I'm actually up to after, it was a minimal amount, but it was 28 last year, and this year it's 36.
Interesting.
That fluctuates every month, because I do pull the last year's report each time. It just depends how it hits. Some days it's, but it's always within 10, I'd say.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All righty?
No reports from town boards. Any old business, council?
Don't have any.
New business, the Albemarle Rural Planning Organization, at their last meeting, considered a resolution, asked us to consider a resolution supporting a future interstate designation for US 64 and US 17 between Raleigh and Hampton Roads area. I attended that meeting, and there was a lot of discussion about this, but it was agreed that they would ask the individual towns to endorse it. And for that reason, we have a resolution, which I'm going to read because those of you in the audience should know what's involved. A resolution in support of a future interstate designation for US 64 and US 17 between Raleigh and Hampton Roads. Whereas the Southern Shores Town Council is a duly recognized legislative body for the town of Southern Shores, and whereas the NC Department of Transportation has asked the US 64/US 17 corridor from Raleigh to Hampton Roads via Rocky Mount, North Carolina, and Elizabeth City, North Carolina, be designated as a future interstate, which would help connect I-40 and I-440 in Raleigh to I-64 and Hampton Roads. This was part of the governor's plan, future plan for highway construction. Whereas Hampton Roads and Raleigh are two of the largest East Coast metropolitan areas, which are served by primary interstate route I-64 and Hampton Roads and I-40 in Raleigh. And whereas requesting a future interstate designation for the section of US 64/US 17 from Raleigh to Hampton Roads and completing improvements which bring this section of roadway up to the interstate standard as part of the North Carolina Governor Patrick McCrory's 25-year vision for North Carolina, mapping our future. And whereas the citizens of northeastern North Carolina share a common interest with the Hampton Roads region for employment, healthcare, shopping, and recreation. And whereas businesses currently located in northeastern North Carolina and those being recruited to northeastern North Carolina have an interest in a safe, fast highway route to the Port of Virginia. And whereas the town of Southern Shores believes an interstate highway will enhance safety and promote economic opportunities for their county and our town. And now therefore be it resolved that the Southern Shores Town Council hereby supports a future interstate designation for US 64 and US 17 between Raleigh and Hampton Roads. Council, I have a motion that we support this resolution and vote in favor of it.
I move we accept the resolution.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Any questions about it?
As I understand it, Tom, this is just the support to the resolution as a designation. There are no funds that have been
No.
allocated for it. There's no,
Absolutely
it's
right.
not on anyone's plan, and there's been no points allocated toward it.
That's correct.
Yeah.
It's a
It's
long-term,
just-
it's a long-range
Yeah, it's long.
visionary plan by the
Yeah,
governor's
objective,
office.
All right,
Exactly.
thank you.
Yeah, if
I
it's-
just want to make that clear.
No funding's
Yeah,
been,
there's been, what I've read, there's been no funding. It's the governor's vision of connecting those two large areas together, and
at some point in the next 25 years.
I
yes,
just don't think there's taking away points or anything from
No,
the,
there's no
Bridge,
money
no,
no,
allocated for
that,
it.
that hasn't happened.
All in favor?
aye.
Anyone opposed? Nay. That motion for the resolution has been made and carried. Thank you. Mr. Esco.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Next item on your agenda, of course, is the consideration of the contract approval of lowest qualified bidder for the Scuppernong street improvements. As we indicated last meeting, informal bids would be opened on January 26th for that project, which was approved by the council last year. The informal bids were open, and as council knows, and hopefully the public knows, that they will be made public record if and when, of course, council acts on that as far as approval or rejection. So presumably after you act on those tonight, it will be immediately made public and the public can inspect the bids. The staff does recommend to you that you approve the lowest bid in the amount submitted by RPC Contracting, Inc. And that's the staff recommendation.
Thank you, Peter. Do I have a motion to accept the recommendation of the town manager with reference to this contract?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? I'm sorry, any discussion?
I just have one question, Peter, and I know you can't, I know we got two here, was there any other interested groups? I mean, you can't release it yet.
We only had 2 bids submitted. We did contact 4 directly, and we did have an indication from one of those other 2 that they possibly would have submitted, but they did not. And Mr. Mayor, I'll be glad, if the council approves the recommendation, I'll be glad to speak out on the individual bids on the record once you do that.
That's fine. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion's made and carried. Yes, Peter, if you'd like to go ahead and,
We did receive two informal bids. One was Barnhill Contracting Company in the amount of $111,990. The other was $94,330 by RPC Contracting. And the estimation, the final estimation, staff estimation, was $88,000 to $97,000.
thank you. Town manager's report, Peter.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm just reporting to you tonight very briefly, as Wes indicated, the cell tower is going up, and we have tried to publicize that and, of course, give the credit to the landowner, Southern Shores Civic Association. I did also want to report to you that I'll be attending the City County Managers Association annual conference with the School of Government starting tomorrow, so I will be out of office for that, but reachable, of course, by cell phone and email at any time. We did have, I did want to report to you that we did have a planning committee meeting this week, Mr. Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem Hess, myself, and the town planner, and we went over the various land use matters that are ongoing in town, really no issues at this point, but basically, new owner of the Marketplace Shopping Center, we have met with them a couple of times for courtesy, and that's about it. So that's a very short report tonight, but that's basically what's happening in town manager's report.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Rasco, and I'll switch places tonight. I'll be the one who will talk a little bit longer. Since our last meeting, a couple of things have come up that are not a big import, but are useful for you to know that I've had to deal with. Dare County has hired a law firm out of Trenton, North Carolina, to file foreclosures to collect overdue taxes. And Dare County collects your taxes, and this firm, all it does is file foreclosures to collect taxes, and they have been pretty aggressive about it. So already, they were due, I guess, the first week of January, and they started filing suits the next week. And because the town of Southern Shores is a taxing authority, of course, within its jurisdiction, it has a lien for its taxes, and it has to be named as a defendant in any suit that's filed by Dare County to collect taxes. Of course, the town of Southern Shores does not owe the taxes of the taxpayer, but pursuant to the statute, the town has to file an answer to the complaint that's filed by Dare County to ensure that its lien keeps its priority and stays in place so that it gets paid when the foreclosure ends in whatever way it ends, hopefully in a resolution that's good for both the owners and the taxing jurisdictions. But there were 2 of those, and we filed answers, and I'll keep you up to date if anything comes up, but I suspect that they will go along their normal process and either get paid or not somehow through the county's process.
That's a question I had. What's the process? I mean, they they send the property owner a letter of some sort?
Now, they file a lawsuit and they serve it on the property owner and they serve it on the town as defendants and
Okay.
any other lien holders. In one of the cases, the owner had a mortgage, I believe, so they're a party too, so they keep their placement in the different, for their lien, for their mortgage, and then they go along like a normal lawsuit.
Yeah, that's, and then the next step is,
Usually-
does it get to court, I guess is what we're actually hearing.
The next step is that the taxpayer pays, so as to avoid getting to court. But if the taxpayer doesn't pay, then it goes through a normal process. It may be a default judgment process where there's no answer by it's tough for a taxpayer to challenge the amount of tax they owe. That there's not a real likely jury trial or trial opportunity to challenge the amount of tax you owe. I assume some people may do that. But it's usually a relatively simplified process. At some point, either it will be settled or a court will issue a judgment to sell the property to pay the taxes. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
And then the other matter was, not sure who might be on the council right now, who would have been on the council in 2003 and 2004, but the town at that time sued the Gingite Woods Water Reclamation Association Incorporated, which is the folks who do the wastewater treatment or water treatment for the Gingite Woods Association, based on some permitting issues and some civil penalties that were due. And in January of 2005, there was a judgment, consent judgment, a settlement of the case that was entered into where that group was supposed to pay a certain amount of money. It's not uncommon that that doesn't occur, but you have a lien that goes on as a judgment, and you have to renew that every 10 years. We were made aware of this timing. Of course, this was before I'd even graduated law school. So, I wasn't involved in the process of filing the initial suit, but the town was made aware of it, and with Mr. Rasco, we prepared a complaint to renew the judgment lien that was already there, and we filed that, and that's out for service, and we'll have to see if there's some sort of defense to that. I don't expect that there will be, unless they've paid and somehow we didn't know, but that's unexpected.
Is ownership, no, the ownership is with the property owners?
No, there's two or three different parcels there, and the one that this institution has an ownership interest in, I believe, is the one that actually is like a pond. It's got a berm on it. But there's another parcel that's a small parcel next to it that I think is owned by where there might be mechanics and stuff that I think is owned by a different.
For some reason, I was under the impression that property has changed hands.
If it did, it changed hands subject to the lien, and it hasn't shown up in the tax records.
So if it did, then the new property owners are still,
And either way, you want to renew, if this group owns any property, it will attach to any property that they own in Dare County. And they, according to the tax records, they do still own the property that's
okay.
at issue. And then I'll have a brief discussion when you get to the closed session portion.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Just a quick update on the vacation traffic issue, which is some concern to a number of our residents. I just talked today with Chief Johnson, the Chief of Police for Kitty Hawk. He has a commitment from this has having to do with enforcement, which is what he's responsible for. He has a commitment from Dare County Sheriff's Office as well as our police force, and also has a conditional agreement with the State Highway Patrol to help with the policing and law enforcement blocking intersection at Highway 12 and 158. As I mentioned earlier, he also has plans to erect a large sign as you come off the bridge, asking people to please not block the intersection. The wording of those signs apparently is pretty tricky. The state won't approve unless it's a polite warning. They won't approve it if it's a harsh warning. So he has to comply with that. He also plans to put, as I think I mentioned before, a no right turn signal light at certain hours of the day on the weekends during the busy season at the intersection of Highway 12 and 158 when you're coming from the east to the west. That's the intersection by the Rite Aid where you turn to go up north on Highway 12. And you can usually make that right turn on red, but they're going to limit that during those summer hours. The decision has been made that he will not ticket people for blocking the intersection. They will simply turn them around and have them go back and start over where they can start from. That's going to force them back west on Highway 158, obviously, but that's the policy. They don't want to hold up traffic more than it's already being held up to write tickets. And I think that probably makes sense, too, from the standpoint of moving people through. I have requested a follow-up meeting to an earlier meeting I had with the mayors of Kitty Hawk and Duck, as well as the chairman of the Currituck and Dare County Board of Commissioners and staff members as they see fit. And that meeting should take place early next week to talk about these issues and see if there's some other resolution to them. We have short-term and long-term things we can look at. Obviously, long-term are things like build a bridge. Short-term, we're still looking at options there, what other options we have, in addition to the potential or non-potential of limiting a left turn onto Dogwood Trail. I think I've commented on that as fully as I can in my mayor's comments. And that's all I have this evening. Jody?
I don't have anything.
I have nothing, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
The only thing is the sign out here that has them taking that left turn to go to the South Beaches. That needs to be changed, because that just adds, if you're a new person coming in town, that just adds to the confusion of making a left turn and then make a quick right to go down 12, because it says the South Beaches. And that sign needs to be changed and have them directed further down 158 before they come back on the
That's on my list of things to discuss with the DOT.
That's the one that I keep looking at and think that needs to be handled.
Thank you, Leo.
Yeah.
David?
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
This time I'll ask our town attorney to
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
take direction.
If you and the council might recall last year, or shortly before that, when Mayor Bennett came on the bench, came to be our mayor, the council voted to create a litigation committee for the Sampson Contracting versus Town of Southern Shores litigation, because Mayor Bennett was a privately, individually named defendant to the lawsuit from things that occurred prior to his being mayor. And in that regard, we have a closed session tonight to discuss that litigation. And so I wanted to remind you all of that and remind you that the mayor's already been excused pursuant to that resolution of everything related to that. So he may step down for the remainder of this closed session. We'll come back afterwards in open session. He can return to the bench if he'd like. And if the Mayor Pro Tem would actually make the motion to go into closed session to discuss the Sampson contracting matter, that would be appropriate.
I move the council go into closed session pursuant to NCGS 143-318.11A3 to consult with the town attorney in a manner preserving the attorney-client privilege to discuss this case of Sampson versus the Town of Southern Shores.
I second it.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We're back in session and we can move to adjourn if you so wish.
You're back in session. You've already done that. That's my
Yes,
question.
we are back in
Yeah.
session.
Yep, we're back in session.
I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.